Back in 1980, IBM unveiled a small box called a personal computer. People weren't quite sure what to do with it.
How do you turn this thing on?
With 128K of something called RAM and a thing called a floppy drive, the curious device had just enough power to play Pong. When you turned it on, you found the machine was controlled by something called DOS and was not particularly friendly. 15 years later, Pentium PCs can perform over 100 million operations per second. Memory is measured in megabytes and disks are measured in gigabytes. And when you first turn it on, you find the machine is controlled by something called DOS and is still not particularly friendly. Even with the new face of Windows 3.1, just getting a game to work can be difficult. Finally, with features like a new simplified interface, support for plug-and-play hardware, multitasking, and built-in networking capabilities, Windows 95 has taken the next step to making the PC easy to use. Maybe even easier than setting this.
Hi, my name is Dave Overoy. In the next 30 minutes, I'll be taking you on a guided tour of Windows 95, highlighting some of its features and telling you what's changed from Windows 3.1. So sit back, relax, and if you're eating popcorn, be sure to wipe your fingers off before you get your greasy mitts all over the keyboard.
During this video, we will cover the following topics: how to install Windows 95, the taskbar, the new look of Windows 95, the desktop, and the accessories in Windows 95. Next, we'll put together a newsletter and show you about running applications and file names, how to install applications. We'll install a printer, modem, and sound card, and use the system icon to make sure everything is working okay. Finally, we'll look at some of the tools to make things easier to transition from previous versions of Windows. Each section of the video will be separated by a screen like this, so you can fast forward to whatever subject you're most interested in, or rewind to review a particular section. Now let's go ahead and install Windows 95. To install Windows 95 over your existing version of Windows, just insert either the CD-ROM or the first diskette into the appropriate drive. From the Windows Program Manager, try using the Run command to search or browse for the setup.exe file. This will start the Windows 95 setup program. I'll click on Continue, and Windows 95 will check to see what's on my system. After a few minutes, we can review the legalese and click OK. The Windows 95 setup wizard will guide me through the installation. I'll accept the option of installing Windows 95 over my old version of Windows in the /Windows subdirectory and choose the typical setup option. I can enter my name and company and inform Windows 95 about any special hardware that I may have. Again, my system is examined. Finally, I'll accept the default option of installing the most common components of Windows 95 and create a startup disk. This diskette can be used to help boot the computer if something were to ever happen to my internal drive. Windows 95 copies the remaining files to my hard disk and then restarts my computer. Windows 95 now reconfigures some old Windows 3.1 files. With the setup complete, I can restart my computer one more time and am greeted with the Windows 95 startup screen. Since this video was made with a pre-release version of Windows 95, our startup screen will look slightly different than yours, but not much else should be different. The first thing you should notice is that there is no DOS prompt in sight. We are immediately launched into the Windows 95 interface called the desktop. As you'll see, the desktop holds all of the information and programs on your computer. To make things easier to see, I'll work with larger icons than you probably have on your computer. There. At a very minimum, you should see the My Computer icon, the Recycle Bin icon, and a gray bar across the bottom called the taskbar. Depending on the options you chose during installation, you may also see the Microsoft Network or Network Neighborhood icons. There are a number of different ways to navigate with Windows 95, but the most obvious has to be this Start button located in the taskbar. Clicking once on the taskbar pulls up a menu of options. Sliding up to the top activates the Programs submenu. Any program group or accessory that you had in Windows 3.1 is now located here. For example, here's my Word for Windows application. Clicking once would start the application. Next is the Documents menu, which lists the most recent documents that you've accessed. There's nothing here now since I haven't done anything yet. To modify and change your computer's settings, we can access the Control Panel or Taskbar settings here. Finding files or folders on your computer is easy with the Find command, and help is available at any time. You can access and run files from here, and when you're through for the day, you should use the Shutdown command before turning your computer's power off. So the taskbar offers a shortcut to get to the files or information located in your computer. How do you see all the files in your computer? Well, this portion of the screen is called the computer's desktop and can be used to access all of the information in your computer. Let's start by opening the My Computer icon to see what's in My Computer. Double-clicking with the left mouse button opens the My Computer window and tells us what drives are attached to our computer. In my case, the A or floppy drive, the C or internal hard drive, and the D or CD-ROM drive. There is also the control panels and printer folders, which we saw under the Settings option in the taskbar. Now, before we start playing with any files, let's take a look at the new format for the Windows 95 window. The window can be resized as before by clicking on the left mouse button, holding the button down, and moving the mouse at the appropriate locations. The window can be moved as before by clicking up here. The scroll bars allow you to see everything in the window, even if the window is too small to see everything at once. There are now 3 buttons located along the top menu bar. On the right is the Close Window button. Open again by double-clicking here. The middle button maximizes the screen size. Clicking again on the middle button will return the window to its original size. The left button sends a window icon to the taskbar. We can reopen the window by clicking once on the taskbar. Now let's see how files are stored on the desktop. Double-clicking on the C drive, I am greeted with lots of folders which contain my files and applications. Just like a real desktop, these folders may contain documents, other folders, or things to help me get my job done. I can view these folders in any number of ways, as large icons, small icons, and sorted by name or date, and so on. Now let's take a look in my folder. Double-clicking on Dave's, you can see that I have a personal folder and a business folder. Now this is just like opening a real folder on a real desktop called Dave's. We double-click, and we find 2 folders inside called Personal and Business. Now let's take a look and see what's in my personal folder. On the other hand, let's look at the business folder, shall we? In here, I have more files for accounting, graphics, newsletters, projects, and so on. If I open the Projects window, I can work my way through these folders and eventually find the script for this video. You might notice that every window we open creates a mini icon in the taskbar. To return to any window, we can either click on any visible portion of the window or click on its icon in the taskbar. Another way to visualize what we've done is to think of a pyramid with a desktop on top. The desktop is connected to your various drives. Your drives are connected to folders, which may be connected to more files or folders, and so on. This kind of file structure is called a hierarchical file structure, It gives you the ability to organize things, but it sure can make for a mess of open windows. Fortunately, Windows 95 offers a number of ways to deal with the clutter. We could manually resize and drag our windows so we can see the ones that we're interested in, or send some to the taskbar and close others. But by clicking our right mouse button on an empty portion of the taskbar, we can access the Windows 95 capability to cascade, tile, or minimize all of the windows and send them to the taskbar. Yes, believe it or not, Windows 95 has found a use for the right mouse button. Clicking on the right mouse button anywhere in Windows 95 will bring a small menu of some of the available options associated with your location. For example, clicking on the right mouse button while in a window gives you immediate access to change the viewing options for that window, or create new files or folders. Clicking on the right mouse button while on the desktop pulls up a similar menu and gives you the capability to change the properties of the desktop, including changing your background, the screensaver, the appearance of your desktop, and the settings like the screen size. Try using the right mouse button in other locations to see what it can do. Now let's take a second and review what we've covered so far. We know a little bit about the taskbar and how to access applications from there. We know how to work with windows, resizing and sending them to the taskbar and closing them. And we've worked with folders on the desktop. We've even swallowed a term like hierarchical file structure. Now let's take a look at some of the accessories that come with Windows 95. Returning to the taskbar under Programs, we see the Accessories submenu. There are a number of handy utilities here. With the multimedia selections, we can play a CD or video clip and record sound. System tools include utilities to back up our system and keep our disk drive optimized. Down near the bottom, we see two mini applications, or applets, called Paint and WordPad. Opening the Paint mini application, you can see it comes with an impressive array of drawing tools. The WordPad is a basic word processor capable of reading and writing files compatible with Microsoft Word for Windows.
Now, speaking of Word for Windows, let's see what running applications is like under Windows 95. Let's say that you're responsible for putting out the August edition of a scientific newsletter discussing the latest UFO abductions and encounters.
I can access Word through the taskbar, going to the Programs and through to the Word application. Or I can open the My Computer icon and the C drive, open the folders which lead to the application, and then double-click on its icon. You'll notice that applications have a slightly different look and feel than they did under Windows 3.1, but the functionality is the same. Now I'll skip the typing part. Magically, the document has been entered into two columns. I'll save the document on the C drive in Dave's folder, Business, Newsletters, and call it ufoog.doc to go with my other UFO newsletters, and quit the program. Now let's say I forgot to spell check the document and I need to reopen it. I can do this any number of ways. I can use the Run command on the taskbar and browse on the C drive. I can go to the Documents menu and select the file since it is a file that I've worked on recently. Or I could go to My Computer, the C drive, Dave's folder, Business, Newsletters, and finally I see my UFO OG. You'll notice that there is no .doc on the end of the file. A new feature of Windows 95 is the file name. I can change the name of this file to up to 255 characters by typing here, and I don't have to include the usual DOS suffix like .doc. Since I know I'll be working with this newsletter for a while, I decided I'd like a quick way to access it rather than go through all of these windows. Selecting the file by clicking once, I can use the File menu to create a shortcut. Or I can use the right mouse button and click on the icon. The shortcut acts as a pointer to the file, which I can then drag to the desktop. Now I'll send my current window to the taskbar by clicking up here and close the rest. My shortcut, or pointer to the file, is on the desktop. I can immediately access my file by clicking on the shortcut which points to my file. With the file open again, you may notice something peculiar about the name of the file. Since some software still expects a DOS-type name, Windows 95 maintains a DOS version of your file name. In this case, the file is called ufonew_1.doc. Although I've given it a long file name, this version of Word can't recognize the long name. If I were to rename another UFO newsletter with a long file name and open it, it would be known as ufonew_2.doc, and so on. Unfortunately, no matter how hard I try, I can't save the file with a long file name from this version of Word. This confusing situation shouldn't last for long, as most software vendors will be designing their software to take advantage of the new features of Windows 95. And now, back to our newsletter. We decide the letter is too plain looking, so we go out and buy a drawing package like Corel Draw to spice it up. To install software with Windows 95, we need to get to the control panel. The two ways that we've seen so far to do that are to open the My Computer icon or to use the taskbar. Once I've opened the control panel, I'll select Add/Remove Programs and click on Install. I'm told to insert the program's CD-ROM or floppy disk, so I'll do that and select Next. Windows will search your drives for an installation program, typically install or setup.exe. I'll click Finish, and Windows 95 will run the Corel installation program. I'll click Continue and select the option for the full install. I'll accept the default directory, and the files are copied to my disk. Now to run my new Corel package, I can use the taskbar, Programs, Corel Graphics, and finally select Corel Draw. I design my header for my newsletter, group everything, and copy it. Next, I reactivate my Word document using the taskbar, view the header, and paste the drawing into the document. Increasingly, applications support a procedure called drag and drop. Let's maximize our window and open a new document for our September newsletter and view its header. Next, let's arrange the August and what will be the September letter next to each other. To copy the header to the new document, all I need to do is hold the left mouse button down on the drawing and drag it to the new document, and then release the button. The graphic is automatically cut and pasted to the new document. With our newsletter complete, we're ready to print. So we go and buy a new printer. We begin the installation by connecting it to the PC. These connectors on the back are called ports, and the printer is usually attached to what's called the LPT1 port. With the cable hooked up, we can turn the printer on. Let's use the taskbar to go to the Settings menu. We can use the Printer folder or use the Control panel to access the Add New Hardware icon. This icon can be used to add any new hardware to your system, so let's try it out. Initially, Windows 95 can automatically check for new hardware, or we can tell it what hardware that we want installed. Since the automatic method takes a while, I'll scroll down this list and select Printers. Next, I'll search for my particular model of Epson printer, a color stylus, and select Next. I attach the printer to the LPT1 port, so I'll select that and click Next. I'll keep the default name of the printer, accept the option of printing a test page, and select Finish. In some cases, you may need to insert your original Windows 95 disks, so that the necessary software can be copied to your computer. With the printer installed, I can return to my newsletter using the taskbar and send it to the printer. My August newsletter prints out with the color graphics looking great. With the newsletter complete, I'd like to save a copy of the file into my Backups folder. I'll click and hold down the right mouse button and drag the file to the new location. The menu asks if I want to move or copy the file, and I'll choose Copy. Opening the Backup folder, I see the copied file. Let's also copy the file onto a diskette for storage. I'll insert a diskette into the A drive. To copy the file, I can select the file with the left button and choose File and then Send to A drive, or I can use the right mouse button and click on the icon to get to the same choice. If the My Computer icon is open, I could also drag the file to the A drive. Of the three methods, I found the right button to be the most convenient. With our files saved, let's minimize all of our windows and send them to the taskbar. Our desktop still has the shortcut, which we won't be needing anymore, so let's delete it. Remember, we're not deleting the file, just the pointer to the file. We can select the icon with our right button to access the delete command, or we can drag the file to the recycle bin. The recycle bin changes slightly to show that something is now in it. The file is still not removed from our hard disk until we select the bin with our right mouse button and choose Empty Recycle Bin, or double-click on the bin and choose File and then Empty Recycle Bin. Now with everything cleaned up and organized, let's hook up our modem so that we can email everyone and tell them to send inputs for next month's newsletter. We'll start by connecting the modem to the back of the computer. Modems are usually connected to the COM2 port, so I'll hook it up and turn on the power to the modem. Next, we'll access the control panel, select Add New Hardware, and this time we'll let Windows 95 automatically detect the new hardware for us. We wait, and waits, and waits. Eventually, Windows 95 correctly identifies my modem. I select Finish, and Windows 95 sets everything up for me. I'm now ready to use one of the big online services like Prodigy, America Online, CompuServe, or the new Microsoft Network to send my email. Unfortunately, not everything will always work so well. Hardware which does not have built-in plug-and-play capability can be a bit trickier. I'll insert a Creative Labs Sound Blaster 16 card into its slot, hook up my speakers, and start up Windows 95. Using the taskbar, I'll open the control panel and select Install New Hardware. I'll choose Install Sound, Video, and Game Controllers, and from the list of manufacturers, I'll choose Creative Labs and the Creative Labs Sound Blaster 16 AWE32. If you're not sure what type of card you have, you can always use Backup and the Windows Auto Detect feature. Skipping ahead, I'm told Windows can install my card with these parameters. Not knowing or caring much about interrupt requests and DMAs, I'll select Next and Finish. Finally, I'll shut down and restart the computer to make sure everything is okay. When Windows opens, I find something is wrong. I didn't hear the friendly Windows chime through my new speakers. What's wrong? Well, to answer this question, I again go to the control panel. The system icon contains the information that I need. Double-clicking opens the system icon. The first tab gives me information on my computer, and the second tab is called the Device Manager. It includes all the setup information for every device attached to my system. I can examine the properties of any device or remove the device from my system. This, of course, should be used with caution. Now let's take a look at the properties of my sound card. Immediately, I notice an exclamation mark over the card indicating that something is wrong. Double-clicking on the icon opens the properties of this card. The general information tells me the card is not configured properly. I click on the third tab to see what system resources are, and they seem to be what Windows 95 had said it would install. But looking at my manual, I see these settings don't match the factory defaults. I'll either have to open the computer and use jumpers to get the card to match the Windows configuration, or I can change them to match these factory defaults by just double-clicking on them here. For example, to change the interrupt request, I'll double-click here. Notice that as I change the value, Windows 95 tells me if any other device is using that particular value. For example, IR7 is being used by the printer port. I'll go through and change all the values to match the default factory configuration. And fortunately, there are no conflicts. To restart my computer, I'll use the shutdown command on the taskbar. The second option I select says Restart Computer. When my Windows 95 screen pops up, I hear the famous Windows chime, and I know my card is working properly. With a plug-and-play card, Windows 95 can take care of everything for me. Instead of manually changing the setup parameters, Windows 95 can automatically change the board's parameters to match the values that it has selected. This will eliminate conflicts, problems, and the need for jumpers. Plug-and-play support will be one of the great time-saving features of Windows 95. So in this section, we've learned how to run applications from the taskbar or double-clicking on the desktop. We've learned about long file names and how some programs deal with them. We've used the control panel to install new programs and hardware, and the system icon to access the device manager to help solve problems with the hardware that we've installed. We've also seen why plug-and-play hardware can make our life considerably easier. Now let's take a look at a few other features to make the transition easier from those old operating systems. For Windows 3.1 users, we can access something called the Explorer. Those of you familiar with the File Manager will feel comfortable in the Explorer. Double-clicking on an item on the left side will reveal its contents on the right. To move or copy files, click with the right mouse button on the file that you want to copy and drag it to the folder that you want it to end up in. It's actually possible to work entirely from the Explorer, depending on your personal preferences. For those of you still stuck in DOS mode, Windows 95 hides its DOS prompt in here as well. You can adjust the size of the screen and then use any of the DOS commands that you've come to know and love. You may notice as I do a directory that, true to form, DOS still does not use the long file names that we've discussed earlier.
There are other features associated with Windows 95 that will become more available as new software is developed. 32-bit software will help increase your application speed and allow your computer to run more than one thing at the same time, something called multitasking. More and more hardware will be developed to support plug-and-play to make your PC even easier to work on and use. But you should have all the information you need now to begin to put Windows 95 to work for you. Remember, the goal of Windows 95 is to make it even easier for you to work and play on a personal computer. Who knows? It may even give you enough time to figure this out.